The city never sleeps. It hums like a giant drum, horns like talking drums, generators like rattles, voices weaving cloth from morning till night. In that rush of sound and light, a young man named Emmanuel woke up one Monday and decided to disappear. Not from the earth, no. From his name, from his glitter, from the way people looked at him, as if he were not a person, but a wallet walking on two legs. Emmanuel came from a house where doors were tall and floors were cool. His father was the kind who made calls and things moved. His mother's kindness was a quiet rain that watered many hands. In the photos on the family wall, people smiled nicely because the world liked them and they liked the world back. But Emmanuel carried a secret ache. Love had become a shop where his heart was always the product. The first time it broke, he was 21. She said she loved him, and maybe she tried. But she loved his car more the way it opened like a mouth that swallowed distance, the way the leather held people like a gentle hand. When he tried to become small, she grew cold. When he became generous again, she became warm. He learned the exchange rate of his own affection. The second time, he was 25. That one hurt because she was sweet. She baked pastries in the morning and sent him pictures of the sky. But one afternoon, he overheard her friend say, "My dear, hold him tight. His surname alone is better than 10 job offers." That day, something shifted. He smiled less. He spoke less. He paid for everything and felt poorer in his chest. By the third time, the third time taught him a language he never wanted to learn. Contracts of love. Receipts of affection. Negotiations over dinner. He watched himself turn into a walking promise. Trips, houses, sponsorships. He wanted to be chosen for his laugh, not his last name. For his ordinary face when he woke up in the morning, not for the signature he could place on a check. That Monday morning, he called his driver and said, "Thank you. You can rest for a while." He called the chef, the gardener, even the guy who cleaned the pool. He thanked everyone and said he was traveling for a bit. Then he put his phone on silent, chose a simple shirt, slid his feet into sandals that had stories and not polish, and took a bus out of the city. He didn't pick a place famous for beach houses or for towers that scratched the sky. He chose Ibadan, old roofs like rusted stories, brown walls that knew history, streets where the evening breeze carried suya smoke and laughter. In Ibadan, eyes look at you first before they look at your shoes. Emmanuel found a small room above a tailor's shop. The window opened to a busy street where a woman fried akara every morning and called customers with a voice that could wake a lazy goat. He bought a small gas cooker and 2 plates. He folded his shirts carefully on one shelf. He bought a cheap phone with a torchlight and learned how to walk slowly again. He took up a casual job at a bookshop, one of those narrow places where dust and wisdom share the same shelf. He liked the owner, an elderly man called Uncle Bayo, who wore glasses that made everything look important. "Ah, my boy," Uncle Bayo said the first day, "books don't bite, but they can talk. If you hear them talking too much, carry them to the window and let the noise out." Emmanuel laughed. It felt good to laugh and not feel observed. Days turned into weeks. He woke at 5, boiled water for tea, listened to the muezzin's call, then the church bell, both reminding him that the sky belongs to no one. He swept his small room, greeted the tailor's apprentices, and walked to the shop before the sun became proud. He met people who didn't know anybody's surname. He learned how to bargain for tomatoes without breaking a smile. He learned the names of the children who played football with a plastic bottle. He learned how to vanish into the crowd and become ordinary. Ordinary tasted like fresh bread. One Friday, when the heat was lazy and the sky looked like it had forgotten rain, a woman walked into the bookshop. She wasn't lost. She walked like a person who knew where her next step should land. Her name was Naomi. She wore a simple white shirt, tucked neatly into navy trousers. No loud logo. No glittery bag. Her hair was braided back, clean lines like a good plan. Her eyes were the kind that notice, shoes, shelves, smiles. She glanced at the poetry corner, then the business section, then the small shelf near the door where children's books danced. "Good afternoon," she said. "Good afternoon," Emmanuel replied. "Welcome. I'm looking for something light and something sharp," she said. "One for resting, one for waking up." Emmanuel smiled. "So you want a pillow and an alarm clock?" She laughed rich, true laughter that didn't check if anyone important was listening. He led her to a small novel written like a song and a book of essays that snapped like fresh yam. They talked. About stories. About songs. About why some sentences feel like home and others feel like traffic. She held the books like a careful mother, and then brought out a wallet. Please, she said. Add this old poetry collection too. My father liked it. You read poetry? Emmanuel asked. I read people, she said, then added softly. Poetry helps. When she left, the room felt like it had just been visited by Saturday morning. Emmanuel watched her cross the street with ease, like she and the road were friends. He didn't know she owned a company on the other side of town, a food brand that turned small kitchens into big dreams. He didn't know the newspapers had called her Boss Lady Naomi, because she built a tidy empire without dirty footprints. He didn't know that bright men with shinier cars often waited in her reception, hoping their smiles could open a door her values kept shut. He only knew she liked a book that sang and a book that stung. And he liked that. Naomi returned the next week. And the week after that. Sometimes she bought nothing. She just stood by the window and talked about how markets sound like choirs when it is almost evening. Sometimes she brought roasted plantain wrapped in newspaper and said, share, like someone who believes abundance can fit inside one hand. They did not talk about money. They talked about mango season and traffic wisdom, about how to sit with sadness without letting it drink all your water. She spoke of her team, smart girls and boys who believed in clean business. He spoke of the tailor downstairs, the way the old man measured with his eyes before the tape. She laughed when he said he had a special talent. He could tell when a book needed more air. 2 months passed and Emmanuel's life became a gentle drum. Wake, sweep, open shop, tea, talk, read, close, walk home, sleep. He didn't once say the name that could change how she stood when she spoke to him. He didn't mention the estate he had left in Lagos, the cars that were sleeping under covers, the bank cards that were dozing inside a safe. He simply carried his small phone like a torch and let his eyes do the shining. Then, one late afternoon, Naomi stood in the doorway with a face that said something inside her had tipped over. I lost a contract today, she said softly. We worked for months. We were the best. But the man in charge wanted me to come alone for dinner. He wanted the kind of yes that has no pens. Emmanuel felt anger enter the room like a storm that came without rain. I'm sorry, he said, meaning it like a promise. She smiled not because she was happy, but because she refused to bow. It's fine. We'll get another one. We'll work. Work is an honest friend. They rearranged the children's shelf without saying more. The dust became stories. The stories became people. When she left, she forgot her scarf. A white one with a fine blue line. Emmanuel folded it gently and placed it in a drawer. That evening, as he climbed the stairs to his room, the tailor called out, Bookman, your friend is good. She greets elders with both hands. Emmanuel laughed. So you've been watching. Everybody watches goodness, the tailor said. The next morning, Naomi returned for her scarf and found it folded like a secret. You kept it so gently, she smiled. Some things look small but carry a person's day, he replied. Their friendship grew like yam, quietly underground, until one day the leaves became obvious. Emmanuel walked her to her car sometimes, a simple black sedan that didn't announce her resources. She walked him to the bus stop other times, and they'd stand in silence that wasn't empty. People began to notice. Not loudly, because Ibadan minds its business until business knocks. Uncle Bayo adjusted his glasses more often. The Accra woman added extra pepper to Emmanuel's Accra and winked. Children asked, Is she your sister? Emmanuel would laugh. Naomi would look at the children and say, He's my friend, with a softness that made the word look like a gift. One Saturday, after rain had washed the dust and left the streets shining like new skin, Naomi said, Come and see something. Is it a surprise? Emmanuel asked. It's a place, she said. They drove to a small factory on the edge of town. Inside, women in hairnets sang quietly as they packed spices and dried herbs. Everything smelt like a blessing for soup. Naomi moved through the room without a queen's air. She greeted the staff by name, asked about a child's cough, checked a faulty seal, rinsed her hands, and joined the packing line for 5 minutes as if time needed that kindness. Your place is good, Emmanuel said softly. It's not mine alone, she answered. I only hold the door. In that moment, he loved her. Not with fireworks, with certainty. He went home that day and sat by his small window. Cars moved like ideas on the road below. He watched the sun move slowly and knew what he wanted to do. Build a life where laughter is not bought, where kindness holds hands with truth, where names do not need to stand on chairs to be heard. He also knew something else. Secrets are like stones inside shoes. You can continue, but you will not walk well. He couldn't carry the stone of his hidden name forever. But not yet, he told himself. Not yet. The weeks that followed brought tests that don't knock before entering. A rich man with a shiny wristwatch visited the bookshop one afternoon. He smiled at Naomi with the kind of smile that expects doors to open. He offered to sponsor a big expansion for her brand, to ship products to cities that sleep late. He spoke loudly. He looked at Emmanuel once, the way some people look at benches useful, but not part of the conversation. Naomi listened respectfully, then said, "Thank you. If we work, it will be by contract, not by company of hearts." The man laughed. "Company of hearts? My dear, I came with numbers." "Numbers are good," she said, "but I work with both numbers and quiet." He tried again. He failed again, not because his wallet was unready, but because his values were. Another day, a family friend told Naomi, "My dear, choose carefully. This your bookshop boy, does he have a future?" Naomi smiled. "He has a present. People with a good present usually know how to meet tomorrow respectfully." The friend hummed. "A man must stretch. He must provide." "He does," Naomi said simply. And she meant it. Emmanuel provided presents. That rare bread we forget we are hungry for until we're fed. He provided listening, small, honest work, laughter that was not expensive, silence that wasn't heavy. He remembered birthdays of her staff. He carried cartons when the driver was late. He wrote notes in the margins of books she liked. "This sentence sounds like you." Naomi fell in love quietly, not because she wanted a story to tell, but because her heart recognized water. What did Emmanuel do? He prayed in his small room. He asked that his father's name would not swallow this simple thing. He asked that when he finally spoke his truth, the truth would not sound like a trick. One Sunday evening, as the orange sky hugged the roofs, Naomi and Emmanuel walked along a street where the trees moved like old men dancing. She carried a small nylon bag with roasted corn. He carried nothing but the courage to ask a big question. "Naomi," he said gently. "Yes, will you let me be your home?" She looked at him. The world became quiet enough to hear a bird argue with another bird in a nearby tree. "Are you asking me to marry you?" she asked, a smile hiding in her voice. "Yes," he said, without loudness, with steady. She didn't answer quickly. She watched his face as if it were a landscape with many places to visit. He stood there, simple shirt, quiet sandals, eyes that looked like they knew what they wanted to guard. "Emmanuel," she said, "I want a life that sings even when we are not singing. I want work that is honest. I want friendship that does not end after vows. If that is what you are asking me for, my answer is yes." He exhaled, and the world exhaled with him. He reached for her hand. It felt like the handle of a well, reliable, giving water. That night he returned to his room and sat on the edge of the bed. His chest felt like a market where everyone was selling joy. He knew what he had to do. Tomorrow he would tell her his name. Not Emmanuel of the bookshop, but Emmanuel of the house with wide doors and quiet guards. He would tell her about the companies, the foundations, the family that appears on magazine covers when charity is doing ceremony. He would tell her about the heartbreaks that taught him to hide. He would tell her everything before the world did. He didn't sleep much. He lay awake and planned. He would take her to a calm place, maybe the small garden behind the bookshop. He would begin softly. He would end with a promise. "This is not a trick. It is a truth. If you want the bookshop Emmanuel, I'll carry him into any house we find. If you want to walk away, I will place this love down without noise." Morning came with a gentle knock. Not on his door, on the story itself. The knock wore a suit and carried a news camera. At exactly 9 o'clock, a car parked in front of the bookshop, and two people stepped out. A woman in a tidy blazer with a microphone. A young man with a camera on his shoulder. They moved quickly, like people who are trained to catch things before they run. "Good morning," the woman said to Uncle Bayo, who was placing a stack of used novels on a stool outside. "Please, we are looking for a young man named Emmanuel. He works here." Uncle Bayo looked at her over his glasses. "What do you need with my boy?" "We received a tip," she said kindly, "that the son of Chief Adewale is living in this area under a different identity. We want to confirm it before people write the wrong story." "Chief Adewale?" someone nearby repeated, as if that name were a drum. Heads turned. Even the Accra oil seemed to pause. Emmanuel was halfway down the street, returning from buying bread, when he saw the camera and heard his father's name floating like perfume. He stopped. The world in front of him split in two, one road into secrecy, one into truth. Naomi, who had planned to stop by the shop before a meeting, saw the small crowd and felt a thread pull in her stomach. She parked 2 streets away and walked in slowly, reading faces the way some people read clouds for rain. She saw the camera first. Then she saw Emmanuel, bread in hand, still like a tree that had just decided to be a tree. The reporter turned, noticed him, and her eyes flashed with professional certainty. "Sir, good morning. Are you Emmanuel Adewale? The son of—" Emmanuel raised a hand not to command, but to ask for gentleness. "My name is Emmanuel," he said quietly. "Please give me a minute." He walked to Naomi. The crowd made space the way crowds do when a story is about to become a moment. "I was coming to tell you," he said, voice low. "I chose today. I wanted my mouth to bring you the truth, not the wind." Naomi searched his face. The hidden rooms inside her heart opened one by one. Surprise, confusion, the small ache of being the last to know, the larger relief that she had not been wrong about his kindness. The camera lens tried to smell their privacy. She ignored it. "Emmanuel who?" she asked softly, not as a challenge but as a request. "Emmanuel Adewale," he said. "My father is Chief Adewale. I left Lagos to breathe. I left so my heart could grow without price tags. I wanted to meet the world without my surname asking for attention. Naomi, I am still the man who knows which shelf the old poetry sits on. I am still the man who carries cartons when the driver is late. The name does not cancel the person." Silence sat down. The street listened. Uncle Bayo removed his glasses slowly and cleaned them on his shirt, the way elders do when feeling is heavier than sight. The reporter lowered her microphone. Even cameras understand when they are too close. Naomi looked at Emmanuel's hands, bread in one, future in the other. The man in front of her was 2 truths wearing one shirt. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "Because I wanted to be chosen for my laugh," he said. "Not my last name." She breathed out. The air moved again, a motorcycle muttered by. The Accra woman flipped a circle of dough as if drama needed snacks. "I did choose your laugh," she said. "And your silence. And your study." His eyes watered the way eyes water when honesty is allowed to stretch. "Then choose again," he whispered. "Choose knowing my name." Naomi opened her mouth to answer and then closed it. Not because she doubted, but because choice deserves a chair. Some answers should sit first before they are spoken. She lifted her chin. "Give me today," she said softly. "Let me carry this news from my head to my heart. Then I will come to you with an answer that can walk." Emmanuel nodded. Relief and worry shook hands inside him. He turned to the reporter. "Ma, I will speak with you tomorrow. Today is not for headlines." She nodded, surprised by the gentleness of a man who could have given orders. They left, the young cameraman glancing back twice, as if trying to memorize a lesson he didn't yet understand. The crowd began to thin, satisfied by the promise of a story that would continue later. Children returned to their bottle football. The tailor coughed in that way elders used to make a point. Naomi tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I have meetings," she said. "Very normal, very small meetings that will continue to be normal, even if your surname takes a chair beside them." "I'll be here," he said. She walked away, steady. He stood by the doorway, the bread becoming lighter in his hand. All day the city spoke. Not loudly, cities hardly shout, they hum. In offices, in taxis, in kitchens, the name Adewale rode on gossip like a passenger who forgot to pay and still got dropped at the gate. Some said it was a romantic story. Rich boy hides, finds true love, reveals himself. Some said it was a trick. Rich boy tests a girl like a teacher hiding marks. Some said it was beautiful. Some said, "We shall see." Naomi's team heard before she arrived. They looked at her carefully, like a pot watching a cook to know what spices to expect. She smiled and went to work. She sent emails. She corrected a label design. She called an elderly supplier to ask about his wife's therapy. She was Naomi, boss lady not by noise, but by correctness. At noon, she entered the small prayer room beside her office. No candles, no drama. Just a chair and a window that let in a rectangle of sky. She sat there and let the quiet do what it knows how to do. Separate fear from wisdom. Did she love Emmanuel for his softness? Yes. Did his surname change his softness? No. But did the hiding scratch something tender inside her, something that had grown in the dark and preferred sunlight? Also yes. She remembered the rich men with their easy offers. She remembered how Emmanuel never tried to buy her with explanation. He had given her something money cannot fake. Time without pushing, presence without price. She stood up and knew her answer. Not because it was easy, but because it was honest. At exactly 5 o'clock, she walked down the road to the bookshop. The sky had turned the kind of blue that makes old buildings look like they are telling a story. Emmanuel stood by the doorway, as if the day had placed him there, and said, "Wait." She smiled when she saw him. He smiled too, the kind of smile that stands up because the ground is firm. "Emmanuel," she said quietly, stopping a step away. "A name is a door. Some doors open to rooms with mirrors, some to rooms with chairs. Your name opens to many voices. I will not lie, it scares me a little. But I did not fall in love with a door. I fell in love with a room. With the way you let people enter without losing yourself. With your patience, your small jokes, your way of seeing the market like music." He swallowed. "So," she continued, "here is my answer. Yes. I still want to marry you. But we will do it with an agreement. Our life must remain ordinary in the ways that matter. We will not buy noise. We will not sell our peace. We will not become a show." He nodded. A laugh escaped him, small, grateful, like a boy whose kite has found wind. He held out his hand. She took it. And then, as if the day had been waiting for them to speak before introducing its trouble, a black SUV rolled to a stop beside the shop. The back door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out and looked at them the way night sometimes looks at afternoon, calculating how to arrive. "Good evening," he said politely. "Miss Naomi?" She turned. "Yes. I'm from Apex Foods International," he said, handing over a crisp envelope. "Our board would like to meet you tomorrow morning. We have an urgent concern about a supply contract you recently won. In view of today's revelations, they are reconsidering certain partnerships. They would prefer to speak with you before making a public statement." Naomi's fingers tightened around Emmanuel's hand. She took the envelope. Her eyes did not wobble. "Thank you," she said, voice steady. The man nodded and returned to the SUV. It slid away like a quiet threat. Emmanuel looked at Naomi. Naomi looked at the envelope. The bookshop held its breath. The tailor upstairs coughed again, this time like a drumbeat that means prepare. "Whatever this is," Emmanuel began, "we will face it," Naomi finished. "But first I will read. Trouble often hides in fine print." She smiled, small but sharp. He smiled back, heavy with care. They stepped inside the shop. Outside, the city hummed its evening song. Inside, Uncle Bayo adjusted his glasses and brought out 2 chairs, placing them side by side like a prayer. Naomi broke the seal. Words rustled. Emmanuel watched her face the way sailors watch clouds. She read silently for a long minute. Then she lifted her eyes. "It's not only the contract," she said softly. "It's a story they plan to tell. That I knew who you were from the beginning. That I played a sweet game. That my brand is now a door for your family's influence." Emmanuel's jaw clenched, not with anger that shouts, but with the ache of a man who wanted to protect quiet things and has invited a storm instead. "Naomi," he said, "I am sorry." She shook her head. "Don't apologize for being yourself. We both chose truth, and truth sometimes calls noise to itself just to teach us silence again." The sky outside lowered itself by a shade. Somewhere a child laughed. Somewhere else, a woman poured water into a bucket and made a sound that meant enough. Naomi folded the letter and placed it on the counter like a patient. "Now," she said, voice calm, "we will decide how to answer. Not to please them. To keep our names clean." Emmanuel nodded and reached for her hand again. The doorbell tinkled softly as a breeze passed through. The letter from Apex Foods sat on the bookshop counter like a quiet storm. Its words were calm, but their meaning was sharp. Naomi folded it carefully, her fingers trembling only once before she placed it back in the envelope. Emmanuel stood beside her, silent. The world outside continued as if nothing had happened. Hawkers shouting, kiki horns bleating, a child crying over spilled groundnuts, but inside, the air was tight. "They want to meet tomorrow," Naomi said finally, her voice steady. "They think I used your name to win the contract." "That's not true," Emmanuel said quickly. "You earned that contract with your sweat. Everyone in that industry knows it." Naomi gave a small smile. Truth doesn't always shout loud enough when money is whispering against it. Uncle Bayo sighed and adjusted his glasses. "When people see light, my children, they don't always clap. Some prefer candles to suns." That night, Emmanuel couldn't sleep. He paced his small room, his heart heavy. He wanted to protect Naomi, to shield her from the noise his name had brought. But how do you fight rumors that have no face? He knew that his father's company, the Adewale Group, had powerful enemies. Some would seize any chance to pull the family's name into scandal. At dawn, he sent a message to his father. "Dad, it's me. I need your help, but not with money, with truth." It took only an hour before his phone rang. The voice on the other end was deep and calm, but carried the weight of many expectations. "Emmanuel," his father said. "So you really ran off to live as a common man." "I needed to find peace, Dad." "And what did you find?" "I found love," Emmanuel replied softly. "Real love." There was silence. Then Chief Adewale spoke again, slower this time. "The world doesn't always understand real things. Send me the letter. I'll handle Apex Foods." But Emmanuel shook his head, even though his father couldn't see it. "No, sir. If you step in, they'll say I used your power. Let her fight this herself, or rather, let us fight it, with our own names, not yours." Chief Adewale paused, then said quietly, "You sound like your mother." That was all. The line went dead. Morning came with long shadows. Naomi arrived at Apex Foods headquarters, her head held high. The building's glass doors gleamed under the sun, cold, clear, and judgmental. Emmanuel waited outside in a simple brown shirt, praying silently. Inside, Naomi walked into a boardroom full of suits. Men and women sat around a polished table, folders stacked before them like evidence in a trial. "Miss Naomi," the chairman began, his tone polite but sharp. "Thank you for coming. You're aware of the situation?" "Yes," she replied, calm but firm. "You recently secured a supply partnership worth 40 million naira. Some concerns have been raised that your relationship with Emmanuel Adewale, son of Chief Adewale, may have influenced the decision." Naomi met his eyes. "With respect, sir, when I applied for that contract, I did not even know Emmanuel's last name. I met him as a bookseller, not as a billionaire's son." A few members exchanged skeptical glances. One woman asked, "So you claim you loved him without knowing who he was?" Naomi smiled gently. "Love is not a claim. It's a journey. You don't check ID cards on the road of the heart." Someone chuckled softly. Even the chairman's face softened. "You're saying your success stands alone?" "I built my company from one blender in a one-room apartment," Naomi replied. "When I started, nobody with a famous name was there to pay rent. If I've earned this partnership, it is because my products work and my customers trust me. Emmanuel's name is big, but it doesn't cook stew." A quiet laughter rippled through the room, not mockery, but respect. The chairman nodded slowly. "We'll review the facts. For now, the contract remains active." Naomi bowed slightly. "Thank you, sir." When she stepped outside, Emmanuel stood waiting by a tree. She smiled a tired, grateful smile, and he walked to her without words. He didn't need to ask what had happened. Her eyes said it all. Days turned to weeks. The gossip began to fade, replaced by new city noise. Apex Foods issued a statement confirming that Naomi's contract was earned on merit. Emmanuel's story, the rich man who lived poor to find love, spread across social media like wildfire. Some mocked him, others admired him. But he ignored them all. He only cared about Naomi. One Sunday afternoon, he took her to a small park on the edge of the city. Children played football nearby, their laughter echoing. The smell of roasted corn floated in the air. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Regret what?" "Leaving your world for mine." He smiled. "Naomi, I didn't leave my world. I found it." She laughed quietly. "You and your poetic answers." He took her hand. "I mean it. For the first time, my world feels true." Then he went down on one knee. The park noise faded into a hum. "Naomi," he said, his eyes bright with hope, "you already said yes to my heart. Now, will you let me make it official? Will you marry me truly this time, with my name, with everything I am?" Tears filled her eyes. She nodded, speechless. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "Yes, Emmanuel. I'll marry you, not for your name, but for your heart." The children nearby began to clap, not knowing why but feeling the joy anyway. An old woman passing by smiled and said, "Ah, love dawn win again." The wedding came months later, small, simple, beautiful. The ceremony was held in a quiet church on the outskirts of the city. Naomi wore a gown of white lace, no diamonds, no drama. Emmanuel wore a plain black suit. Chief Adewale attended with his wife, humbled by the woman his son had chosen. When he hugged Naomi, he whispered, "You've given him what money could not buy." After the vows, they danced. Not the kind of dance meant for cameras, but the one where two souls move because they finally recognize each other's rhythm. Life after marriage was not without challenges. There were whispers, business setbacks, and the constant pressure of being the couple that had shocked the internet. But through every storm, Naomi and Emmanuel stood side by side. When Emmanuel eventually returned to his father's company, he didn't come as the heir who had vanished. He came as a man who had learned the value of humility. He restructured the company's charity wing to support small businesses, especially women like Naomi once was. Naomi's food brand expanded across West Africa. She made sure every product label carried a short line in Yoruba. Or Koniten, goodness never ends. Every evening, they still visited the bookshop where it all began. Uncle Bayo would greet them with his same old smile. "Ah, my children," he'd say. "So love really won this round, eh?" Emmanuel would laugh. "Love always wins, Uncle, but only after many tests." And Naomi would add, "That's why we keep studying together." Years later, when they had 2 children, a boy and a girl, Emmanuel took them to Ibadan and showed them the small room above the tailor's shop. The walls were faded now, but his voice carried warmth. "This," he told them, "is where your father learned that riches without peace is poverty in disguise. This is where I learned that the best love doesn't look for gold, it becomes gold." The children listened quietly, their eyes wide. As they walked back down the street, Naomi linked her arm through his. "Would you do it all over again?" she asked. He smiled. "Every single moment." They paused by the old bookshop, still standing, still full of stories. Emmanuel picked up a dusty book from the shelf and read a single line aloud. "Love finds us, not when we wear crowns, but when we wear truth." Naomi leaned her head on his shoulder. The city lights flickered to life. Somewhere in the distance, a muezzin called the evening prayer. A church bell answered softly. The world, noisy as it was, suddenly felt quiet, as if for once it agreed with them. And so ended the story of Emmanuel and Naomi, a man who hid his golden name, and the woman who saw his heart before his crown. Because in the end, it wasn't wealth that made him rich. It was the love that refused to see his riches. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling tales. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And stay tuned for the next chapter of our incredible story.